Welcome to A24 Quest. Yeah. De Palma.
De Palma.
This has been this is gonna be a different one, because one of them is incredibly straightforward. So much so, there's no room for personal interpretation because it just is what it is. De Palma, incredibly down to basics. It's just very simple, almost nothing to talk about, except for De Palma's filmmaking legacy itself. And then there's How to Talk to Girls at Parties, which is very hard to talk about, much like girls at parties.
Ah, nice.
So...
Yeah, so let's start with De Palma. So you have a documentary about Brian De Palma, the director, who was
Carrie,
kinda...
Scarface, The Mission Impossible, the first one.
Impossible.
Lots of movies.
Untouchables. And he was kind of part of that group of Scorsese and George Lucas and kind of...
Steven Spielberg.
Yeah. So he blew up with those guys. And
he's from like the golden age of Hollywood.
Kind of, yeah.
Like the mid 60s, 70s renaissance of like small time filmmakers making it big.
Definitely. And so he made essentially his biggest movie of his career, I would imagine, is Scarface.
Probably. That's the one most people know. Funny enough, I've only seen one Brian De Palma movie, and it isn't Scarface. I've seen Carrie.
And funny enough, I've only seen one Brian De Palma movie, and it wasn't Scarface or Carrie. It was Mission Impossible 1.
Nice. I have not seen the early Mission Impossibles.
Oh, I saw that when I was like 4.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time.
So neither of us are super well versed on Brian De Palma, but like I said, there's not a whole lot to discuss. Well, the one interesting thing, there's one interesting direction that the the documentary took. This is less so a documentary about Brian De Palma and more so a documentary about Alfred Hitchcock, oddly enough.
Kinda, yeah.
Because a consistent theme through the entire movie is how much inspiration Brian De Palma draws from Hitchcock. Every single movie he does, he has some sort of Hitchcock-related inspiration behind it.
Oh yeah.
And the end is very much like him just talking about Alfred Hitchcock. So, if you're an Alfred Hitchcock fan, oddly enough, you'd get a kick out of this because it's very Alfred Hitchcock centric. But it is also very Brian De Palma centric, and herein lies the perhaps the dividing factor of this movie, and it's that most documentaries tell stories from multiple perspectives, and there's a lot of style in the way they're presented, and it like weaves a story. This is the only person interviewed in this whole movie is Brian De Palma, and it's simply just him talking about his movies.
Yeah, it's like somebody took a camera, set it up, recorded Brian De Palma sitting there, and then they just went one by one down his IMDb.
His whole movie career, and just had him talk a little bit about each movie.
Yeah, which is kind of neat. I wish they would do that with more people.
Yeah,
you know? I'd love to hear this from others.
That is actually what I was thinking. I want whoever did this documentary to do it on like, I don't know, like a Steven Spielberg or a George Lucas or somebody. It's just these people who came from such like humble beginnings and became like huge in the filmmaking scene. Well, and Brian De Palma is a fantastic person to do this with because he's such an interesting guy.
Yeah,
and he's got such a storied history in what he's done in his career and his life, and it's interesting because he's particularly known as being a controversial filmmaker, so you kind of get to hear his side of things.
Well, and I think it would be so nice and so helpful for this type of thing to be done for any notable director, just so you can get even that much closer inside of their heads to figure out kind of why are they doing that. Like, I would love to hear like Wes Anderson's version of this.
It would be like this, but a whole lot more eccentric, I feel.
That would be... I mean, I'd love to hear why he decides that it needs to be framed that way, and the pastel colors.
Yeah, exactly. I want to know
that.
where Wes Anderson's like influence comes from.
Yeah.
And it's interesting hearing what Brian De Palma's influenced by. I mean, obviously there's Alfred Hitchcock, but then there's like he talks a lot about Jean-Luc Godard, which I wasn't expecting, and he was very influenced by like avant-garde French cinema of the 1950s and 60s, and it's like, okay. And his first movies, they showed a little clip of like one of his first like short films, and it's so weird and so avant-garde, and it's like I wouldn't have expected him to come from that kind of background, given that he made, Scarface. But then as you look through his films, there is an artistry about what he does, even though he's known for making some very like shock value movies. But there is an art to shock value in itself. So
yeah. And one of the more interesting things about him that he brings up later is how much he does do the Hitchcock style. Like,
yeah,
I noticed he had a lot of long takes in the little snippets he was showing us, and like it was all very fluid and very interesting. And I'm like, yo, this kind of reminds me of Hitchcock. And then a little bit later, he's like, yeah, I'm very influenced by Hitchcock. I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. And then the rest of the movie is just him talking about how much he adores Hitchcock. And at one point, he says that everybody looks up to Hitchcock, and they all say, oh, yeah, I was inspired by, but they don't use any of his techniques.
Yeah, so
he does.
He considers himself one truly one of the school of Hitchcock. Like he tries to carry on Hitchcock's legacy. And
I thought that was so interesting.
Yeah.
and very impactful, not just for filmmakers, but for just about anything. If you're inspired by something, you should really be trying to learn the way that's done, and then try to almost not recreate it, but reinvent it and use it if that's what you're truly inspired by.
Yeah.
And I don't think people do.
It's funny, and it's like it almost became funny how prevalent Hitchcock was in this movie, because it's like about like near the latter half of the movie, he was like, oh yeah, I went to see Vertigo in the theater with a friend of mine, and then we came out and I had this idea for a movie. And it's like he went so long just kind of like you'd think there'd be a point where he would stop like emulating Hitchcock, but like he kept doing it. And that's not to say it's a negative, it's just like he has a style and he stuck with it.
Well, if you're gonna emulate anybody, you might as well emulate Hitchcock. I don't remember the last film I saw that I thought, oh, this is very Hitchcockian in the way it's made.
You see a lot of movies that are like Kubrickian.
Oh, very.
There's a lot of people who emulate the Kubrick. Like Yorgos Lanthimos is very, very Kubrickian.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not a lot of people, mostly because it's just like, I think Hitchcock's style isn't very flashy and not very easy to like point out. He just has this competency to how he does things, and that's not hard. Easy. That's not easy to emulate.
It's not easy to do.
Yes, exactly.
It's a very difficult style to recreate. Like at one point, he talks about how in Carrie he films a scene where it's on the stage. It goes up part of this banister. It shows the bucket of blood, then zooms into Carrie sitting and talking with her boyfriend or whatever.
Right, and he's talking about it's the build-up, that long, slow build-up, and you have to have the patience to have that.
And that long shot, I believe he said, it took like an entire day worth of filming, and there was like people from the studio coming down saying, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Do you want to film this?"
Yeah, I like the story. He's talking about Carlito's Way, the movie. I think that's what it's called, with Al Pacino, and there's a shot where Al Pacino's being chased through a train, and to film it, De Palma had a camera in it, and a train on the other side of the tracks moving with the other train, and it was so difficult because there'd be like poles getting in the way in between the trains. And at the end of the day, like Al Pacino was so fed up, he took the train and he left with it.
Yeah, he
went
one
home.
of the takes, he just took a train and he went home.
Yeah.
And then Brian chased after him, got to his house, and then Al Pacino's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah. It's like I can totally picture that happening.
Oh yeah.
It's like and this is why De Palma was such an interesting movie, because not only do you get to learn about his influences, you get to hear him tell stories about like on set happenings and shenanigans, and he's a good storyteller. It's like I could just sit and listen to this guy talk for hours, and I did. I was truly engaged, and it was just some dude talking about his movies, and I was just like glued to the TV screen the whole time.
I mean, he was super interesting.
Yeah.
You know, there's one person that I really wish would have had a documentary like this done on, just because I just want to hear his voice for hours, and it's Leslie Nielsen.
Man, yeah.
I would have paid like a couple $100 just to have this movie made for just on Leslie Nielsen, just to go and see it, because that would have been amazing.
Leslie Nielsen had such an interesting career too, because with Leslie Nielsen, a little off topic, but you know, when he started out, he was the like handsome leading man in those like 1950s like sci-fi serials.
Yeah, well, and he had this weird look about him, like he was handsome, but he still had like a funny nose, and like
he looked distinctive.
He's bow-legged, so he had a weird walk, and and so
he was the leading man. He was not to be like laughed about. He was like he was
a serious actor.
And then one day the Zucker brothers, these kids who had just made this really weird experimental comedy, Kentucky Fried Movie, they were like, we're making a bigger budget movie. Let's get Leslie Nielsen as a joke. Because, like, who's going to expect Leslie Nielsen to be in this movie? And the same with Lloyd Bridges and Robert Stack, I want to say his name is. They just got a lot of, like, yesteryear, like, leading man stars to be in their dumb, wacky comedy.
Yeah.
And it just relaunched Leslie Nielsen's career.
And they're lucky that Leslie Nielsen, he's just a guy that would do just about anything.
Yeah.
He signed up, and he was working until the day he died.
And he was like, I love watching him in Airplane, because he's like a consummate professional. He plays the straight man, and it's actually hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
He's like one of the forefathers of like the straight man can be funny too. And I love Leslie Nielsen's work.
I'd love to hear Leslie Nielsen just talk about his experiences.
Yeah.
I think that would have been amazing. It's unfortunate that he died.
Well, but that's the price you pay when your like reinvigorated career happens when you're like pushing 70. You know, it's like it's difficult, because it's like you don't have a whole lot of time to flesh out this new reinvigorated career. But you know, it is what it is.
Yep. But yeah, so Brian De Palma, interesting guy, interesting filmmaker. Not a whole lot to say about the movie. If you want to learn a little bit about him and his mindset as far as his filming process, watch it. If you want to hear some funny stories about Al Pacino, watch it.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. It's like, if you are a fan of like just filmmaking or Brian De Palma specifically, you'll get a kick out of it, because that's all it is. If it doesn't sound like your thing, it is one of those things where it's like, it totally won't be. If you actively dislike Brian De Palma, or if you just don't care to hear about a filmmaker just talking about his films, you're not going to find an ounce of enjoyment out of this.
I do have a couple things left on it. So one, if you've seen his movies, it would probably help the experience, just because you'll know exactly what he's talking about.
Sure.
But it's not necessary.
Yeah, like I've seen very little of his movies.
Exactly.
And I still enjoyed it, and I actually want to go see more of his movies.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where I'm at as far as who should go see it. You know, if you want to, go ahead. If you don't, obviously don't. Yeah. And then I also got some vibes. I don't know if you got this. Was he kind of a creep earlier on in his career?
I think he was always kind of a creep.
Okay.
I think the film's very, very blatant about that, where it's just like he's just sort of a weird womanizer in a way.
Yeah.
He's got that Alfred Hitchcock. I think I just put part of the puzzle together. I was going to compare him to Alfred Hitchcock, because Alfred Hitchcock was kind of that same way. He was like...
Colin just froze, looked at me, and pointed.
He's like, you know what? He is the reincarnation of Alfred Hitchcock. But no, there was actually an interesting thing. It's like he was very, very... there's a lot of violence against women in his movies, and that was a very controversial thing. And he was talking about Redacted, which he did in like 2007, I want to say. And there was a lot of stunt casting. So like there's a where did it take place?
Oh,
somewhere in the Middle East.
Yeah.
But there's this girl they cast, and there's a rape scene featuring her, which kind of echoes an earlier movie of his. I think it's called Casualties of War. Something like that.
Something like that.
And where it's like he uses a literal rape to talk about how United States goes and figuratively rapes these countries, and that's a thing he very much. So there's a rape scene featuring this girl who was stunt cast in the Middle East. She is from the Middle East and lived in the Middle East where they were filming, and it was so shocking that she was kind of cast out by her family and her community, and he brought her to the United States and paid for her schooling just because he felt so bad about it. So it's like it's like, I wouldn't say he's truly like a misogynist. Yeah. I just think he's very much about the exploitation of female presence in a movie. I don't know exactly how to put it in a flattering light, but it's like
I do think he's the result of the age he grew up in.
Hitchcock specifically, he talks about Psycho a lot when he's talking about how he portrays violence against women. It's like, well, in Psycho it was so shocking and got a reaction out of people.
Brian De Palma grew up through the 40s and 50s.
Right, sure.
So I mean, he from the age of 1 to 20, he was growing up in prime time, women are objects kind of territory. So maybe that had some influence. Well, I can almost guarantee that had influence on how he portrays women in his works.
Sure.
And I think it seeps through, and I don't think he's actually an awful person, but he definitely has moments where he comes off as kind of this
very old-fashioned,
sleazy, creepy kind of guy in this day and age.
Yeah. But he's very outgoing about it and very like honest about it.
Yeah.
So it's like I understand he's the product of another era, and I still appreciate his work. I don't think he's the type of person who would have like sexual assault allegations leveled against him. I just don't see that happening. He's just from a sleazier era of Hollywood, but he still seems to be a pretty decent guy.
You know what we should have done?
Yeah.
We probably should have looked up if he's had any sexual assault allegations.
This whole thing could be moot if he did.
Because, I guess we don't really know.
Here,
until we look it up.
Do you want to transition into how to talk to girls at parties, and then I'll look up how good Brian De Palma is at talking to girls at parties?
That was pretty tight.
Yeah.
Sure, let's talk about how to talk to girls at parties.
Brian De Palma sexual assault. Wait, I'll just write allegations. No. Allegations.
Oh no. Any results?
No.
Nothing immediately?
No.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear.
In fact, he's Oh yeah, no, I actually heard about this. He's writing a horror film based on the Harvey Weinstein allegations.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's neat.
Currently, yeah.
That could be really cool.
That's pretty neat. I heard about that, but this is before I had a lot of context about who Brian De Palma is. Okay, cool.
Very cool.
So very much the opposite, actually. So, hey, my gut feeling was right. He's an okay dude. He just objectifies women a little bit. What can you do?
Wow.
No.
You need to watch it. Oh boy.
Well, it seemed like I was coming on really strongly to him, and it's like I gotta throw a comical twist in here somehow. Anyway.
Yeah, sure. How to Talk to Girls at Parties is a movie that came out in 2017. It is directed by John Cameron Mitchell, who is mainly an actor.
Who directed Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
And that. This movie is bonkers.
Yeah, it's really nuts.
It's based on a Neil Gaiman short story.
Yeah.
Which is incredibly obvious if you know anything about Neil Gaiman and have watched this movie. Mm-hmm. Just like that crazy punk aesthetic along with absolutely bonkers alien crap happening. Like it's this weird mesh that I definitely could feel Neil Gaiman's presence in this movie.
Yeah. Is Neil Gaiman still alive?
Or he's still alive. He he was just...
Because I know he didn't have anything to do with this movie creatively, right? It was just kind of like...
It was just based on his writings.
On
his writings, yeah. But he just did... he was doing Lucifer, that TV show that was happening.
Oh,
and he played God in it. Because of course he did.
That's about right.
Yeah. So yeah, Neil Gaiman, he's a crazy interesting guy, and I'd love to pick his brain too, I suppose. But this entire movie is punk rock meets aliens. That's this movie. That's what this movie is.
Not aliens as in the John Cameron film Aliens. Aliens as in aliens.
Aliens as aliens, yes.
Yeah. It's I don't even know, man.
It's bonkers, man.
It's crazy. Okay, so when it started, I was immediately put off.
Yeah,
like
me too.
As quickly as you can possibly be put off, I was put off like immediately. It started and it was just loud and obnoxious, and I was like, "Oh my god, this has to stop."
It was punk.
Yeah, it was like it was headache inducing. I was like covering my head, and I was just like, "Oh man, I can't. If this whole movie's gonna be this, I'm gonna have to turn it off." Luckily, it subsides a little bit, but and then it just gets really weird, like really really weird.
Thanks, Neil Gaiman.
And it kind of never stops.
Yeah.
And
so, I mean, yeah, this movie it really splits audiences. So you have a lot of people that really just hate it, and a lot of people who are like, wow, this was amazing. Very bizarre, but I really liked it. And
I think I'm somewhere in the middle.
I fall into, I really liked it. I never want to see it again.
Sure.
That's where I'm at.
It's so... I keep mentioning Edgar Wright to Josh because this to me feels like the Edgar Wright movie that never was.
It really does. While I was watching this, I'm like, this feels like a Shaun of the Dead type.
Yeah.
Just riffing kind of scenes.
It's Shaun of the
neat.
Dead meets The World's End.
Yeah.
And I am prepared to say, and I hate to say this because I am very much Edgar Wright fanboy, and I try not to parade that around as much as I do. But I feel like this movie could have been truly great if Edgar Wright had directed it. And that's not to say it wasn't good as is. I just feel like it lacked a little bit of the personality that Edgar Wright would have brought to it. I mean, not that it didn't have personality, but I don't know. It just felt like it was missing that little je ne sais quoi that Edgar Wright would have brought to the project.
I don't know, man. Because
I think it might be down to editing too. It could have stood to be less traditionally edited.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Because with how Neil Gaiman is and how he writes and how he makes comics, it's very bizarre and very out there and very purposefully put in those types of situations. And I think a more experimental filmmaker would have been better in this sense.
Not even get Edgar Wright or nobody else. Like, bring somebody in who's not afraid to go absolutely hog wild with it. And I feel like this director
touched it.
Touched the hog wild, but was a little afraid to go all the way there.
Yeah. He went really good. I think that the story and the I thought the writing was fine as far as this kind of stuff goes. But I do agree. I think the cinematography really was lacking in such an interesting movie.
Sure, yeah. It's just visually, it didn't have a lot going on other than the strange song, the duet sequence, which was very weird and very
I liked that part.
visually experimental. And that's where I was like, the movie could stand to have more of this. The movie could stand to be like an Under the Skin, where it's just like it has such a tenuous grip on reality that it's just so surreal and so out there. But it's like, it felt a little too grounded for its own good. I mean, it could have been punk rock Under the Skin. That's what this could have been. But it was kind of not quite there.
Yeah, I agree. And, like you said, just the shots were kind of bland, and that's anything but what this movie is.
Right, yes.
So it had that kind of awkward tension between such a bizarre story and such awful, well, not awful, but just normal, everything else as far as visuals. Until you get to, some really nice, weird angles when at the end where they're at the alien's house.
Sure.
And the duet scene, like you said.
Yeah. My main, I think I had an issue with the aliens, and that is they didn't feel alien enough. Like near the end there, they're just people. Like they're dressed weird, but they don't feel like aliens. They just feel like weirdos.
Yeah. Well, and the closest it gets to actually being alien, at least for me, was the first one was when the probing scene. That part I was like,
was
okay,
weird. Yeah,
this is a little bizarre.
That's where it goes so. That is another scene where it got like crazy, like beyond the mainstream. Like this is getting really experimental and really like perverted and really weird.
Well, and I really liked how then they showed another probing, and then it explains kind of what happened in that first one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's kind of neat. And so you get to see like somebody crawl out of somebody else, and that was awesome.
And
then there was the eating scene.
Yeah, the jaw thing. That was cool.
That was awesome.
I liked that.
That was very cool.
It was really messed up. It's just like they pull the jaw down like a snake, and they just.
And then they're like, "All right, go on in."
Yeah, it's like, whoa, this is weird, and yeah, there's little moments here and there that are great.
This movie could have used more of that, but unfortunately, even with the duet scene, you could tell that this movie was already kind of cutting it close with its budget, if not going over already. At least I could. I wanted more, and I knew that this movie couldn't afford to give me more.
You wanted Mandy?
No.
Okay.
I want this movie again, but with a bigger budget is what I want, and I want Neil Gaiman actually on set, helping out
with a more experimental filmmaker who's not afraid to go just crazy.
Yeah. I completely think that if that could happen, this movie could be amazing.
But it has a lot of raw potential, and it delivers on it somewhat. It's not a bad movie. I feel like I'm pretty positive on it, despite the fact that I'm kind of criticizing it. I don't know what I'd rate it. Probably in the 6 to low 7 area.
That sounds fair. I'd probably do the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if you like weird stuff and you don't mind a movie that's a little rough around the edges, a little bit of a...
Oh, yeah, and punk rock mom Nicole Kidman.
Right. There's that. Who I didn't even recognize was Nicole Kidman until the end of the movie. I looked it up and I'm like, that's Nicole Kidman?
Yeah.
Man.
And it's just great.
The last movie I saw her in was The Others. So this is quite the change.
Funny. But yeah, no, I mean... This movie's really weird. It's really gonna divide crowds. Like, if you don't like weird movies, you're not gonna like this. You have to be willing to accept some pretty bizarre situations.
Yeah.
I don't know, crude humor, brief nudity, I think, if I remember right.
I don't know if there was any.
There was a lot of boobs, just because it's European.
Maybe.
I don't know if any of them were actual actresses showing anything, or if it was just
it's like through clothes.
Clothes or mannequins.
I don't think there was any explicit nudity in the movie. That's for a movie as weird and perverted as this was. Like it was like, I'm trying to think of a director to like. Okay, I'm blanking. But for a movie as weird and perverse as this was, it was actually somewhat tame on the sexual side of things. It felt like a teen movie.
I mean, it kind of was.
Yeah, I mean, it was a teen movie. This
I mean,
counts as a teen movie.
called How to Talk to Girls at Parties.
Yeah, I guess it was a teen movie.
Subject.
I guess, yeah, and I guess the teens didn't bother me in it, so that's a plus.
Well, there you go.
They're okay. It was Elle Fanning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like her.
Sure.
I liked her in this a lot.
Yeah, she was good in it.
Just bizarre enough, just enough to make me think, all right, so she's not quite human.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, she commits to the whole alien thing. Nobody else does.
Yeah, not really.
Everybody else is kind of like, they just when it works for a punchline, they can show human qualities. It was very clearly like, he's going to act all human now just because that's not what you're expecting. But it's like, I would like some consistency. Like, I don't know. That bothered me, but whatever. It's a good movie. It's a good time.
So in the end, I don't necessarily recommend it to everyone, but if you're interested, you might as well give it a watch.
Yeah. But for me, for this episode, the winner is De Palma.
Oh, I forgot we have to do that.
Yeah, we actually haven't done it the last few episodes.
Because it was so simple.
Yeah.
Like, the choice was always so simple. Now...
Here's the choice you're found with. Do you want to pick a really solid, really straightforward documentary, or do you want to reward a movie that takes risks?
I'm going to reward a movie that takes risks.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go with How to Talk to Girls at Parties.
All right.
Even though I would probably rather see De Palma again more.
Yeah.
I'm still going to go with How to Talk to Girls at Parties just because of how much I enjoyed it the time I watched it.
Okay, well,
And, you know, part of what attributes to this vote is that I wasn't expecting to like this at all. Like, at all.
Yeah.
Even with knowing that it was with Neil Gaiman attached to it, not, like, closely, but even related to, like, I was like, okay, so some hack is just going to grab this and make some garbage movie. And that's kind of what all the reviews were pointing to. Not that I strictly go off of reviews, but I just wasn't expecting to like it. You know, it's kind of got this douchey guy on the cover, and then when the movie starts, he's still kind of that kind of guy, and I'm like, oh, great. But, you know, the movie, I just enjoyed it more over time.
It could have stood to use less terrible slow motion shots. Because the entire first 5 minutes of the movie... That was part of the reason I was getting a headache. Do you remember that? It was the worst thing I have ever seen in a movie. Well, they did it. I thought like my copy of the movie was broken, and honestly, it looked so terrible. It might have been, because they did that thing where it was slow motion, but like they didn't shoot it in a slow motion camera, so like the frame rate's all janky, and it looked horrible. So
I think that's just another part of not having a big enough budget.
Yeah, I suppose.
You know, if
they shouldn't have made that decision though. 'Cause
I mean, yeah,
the shots themselves didn't need to be. Anyway, we're done talking. We're in the closing slate.
Peace.
I'm going De Palma. We also have to decide our next two movies.
We do. But yeah, so I vote How to Talk to Girls at Parties, but De Palma is such a close second that you might as well watch De Palma.
Sure.
And
just
not
watch them both.
Or watch both.
Do whatever.
That's always a good.
Do whatever you want to do.
Do what you do. Just do what you do, man. Just do it. That's all I gotta say on that.
So you're picking.
I am picking.
I have not looked it up because I am not picking.
Oh, all right.
I don't know what our next one is.
Oh, you're gonna love our next one.
What is it?
Take a guess. Take a hot guess.
It's not The Forest.
No.
What is it?
Swiss Army Man.
Oh.
I am so excited to rewatch this movie for like the 8th time.
Yeah.
I'm so happy.
We should get together tomorrow and have a Smash Bros. Ultimate / Swiss Army Man party.
Is it coming out tomorrow?
It's coming out tonight.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
So we're not actually gonna film the proper podcast today. So this is just me saying.
I mean, we could. We got like an hour and a half.
Not enough.
Okay. What?
Not enough. Because there's like 15 minutes of downtime between them.
There doesn't have to be.
Yes, there does.
Okay. Anyway,
it's not enough.
Anyway, we're gonna watch Swiss Army Man and let's do American Honey. Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
Swiss Army Man, Shia LaBeouf. There you go. Tight.
Yeah. Okay, see you on the next episode of A24 Quest.
Hype. Bye.